Welcome to all Caribbean entrepreneurs. If you've been ready and waiting to take your business digital and get paid online while you sip something strong on the beach, this podcast is for you. We'll hear from the Caribbean's finest entrepreneurs on topics like e-commerce, business development, brand building, social media, their wins and failures. This is the only place in the region helping you navigate the digital age from the Caribbean's perspective. This is Digipreneur FM. And now, let's give it up for the Digiboss himself, Mr. Karan Rose.
Thank you to everybody tuning in to another episode of the Digipreneur FM podcast. And as usual, it is your host, Mr. Karan Rose. DJ, you gotta fade us all the way out. DJ, you gotta fade us out because we gotta talk to the people. So it is August 23rd, 2022, and it is episode number 95. Whew. Day by day, we get closer, folks. How are y'all doing? I hope your weekend was good. I hope your Monday started off really well. We're moving closer to September. Where has the year gone? We've been having fun. That's what we have been doing. If this is your first time listening to the Digipreneur FM podcast, I want to say welcome. I hope you stick around. I hope we, give you value in our podcasts. We tend to have a lot of fun on this side of the interwebs. If you are a returning listener, if you are a daily listener, if you've been part of the Digipreneur FM family from day one, got to drop a bomb for you. Thank you for, riding with us for the last year. Thank you for listening to, 95 episodes of goodness. We really have been having a lot of fun on the podcast, and I'm really excited for the next stage of the Digipreneur brand and where we go. I've been able to start really connecting with a lot of business owners, more content creators, and I'm really excited. I personally feel like this year, because I actually have not done any live streams this year, and I haven't done too many interview podcasts this year, because this year I really was I was pacing myself this year. When once you start to interview people, there's a lot more logistics. There's just a lot more work that has to get into, interviewing people, figuring out times. And mentally, I haven't even been there for that. And I've started to do it. I've started to do it with the digital world. Every Fridays, Freedom 106.5. If you're in Trinidad, if you are not in Trinidad, you guys could always watch the live stream of the radio show. But because I've had to produce that show, and I've had to, work with guests, network, plan schedules, plan the content, I've started to get back into that itch. I'm like, I've been doing this I've been producing or co-producing the radio show with, my co-host Samantha Best, and getting all the guests and prepping all the equipment and organizing schedules and that. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm ready to start, getting back into the regular swing of interviewing people for the podcast. And one of the reasons that, I'm excited to do that is because I've learned really quickly that the conversations that we're going to have on radio are going to be, for radio. The conversation that I would like to have with a lot of our guests um, you can't always go in that direction when you're on radio. Whereas on podcasts, it's a free for all. You could take it any direction you want. There's a level of freedom and comfort in knowing that you could say whatever you want, without any real worry. All right. Versus radio, you really have to keep it to a certain degree. So I know that there's, questions I want to ask, or there's a road I want to go down that I wouldn't do on radio. But on a podcast, it's open season. We can go in any direction. So I learned really quickly the difference between, what you could do with a podcast versus what you could do with the radio. Now, both have their pros and cons, right? So when you are able to work it together, they can be incredibly powerful. They can be incredibly powerful. I think when it comes to content and the different channels that we have access to, everything has its pros and cons. And I think once you are strategic enough to see how everything can kind of work together and make it work for you, then it really minimizes the cons of any one particular platform, right? And so with radio, like I said, I know radio has the authority, right? When you're on radio, people view you and your platform as an authority figure. You also have the reach. You also have an entire network behind you. So there are people that, would have never listened to the podcast, but they listen to radio 24/7. The radio was on, right? And that station might never change. And if you're able to hook them, that person might listen to the radio station, all day. Like I was in a rideshare the other day, and when I jumped in the car, I heard a promo. I didn't even look at the radio. I heard a promo, and I'm like, oh, it was a promo for the networks. When I actually looked at the radio, I was like, oh, he's listening to our radio station. So I just asked him, I listen to that radio station all the time, and he was like, yeah. He's like, it doesn't move. He's like, since this new station came out, he's like, the content is very different. I love the content. I love the hosts, and the conversation that they have is very different than the traditional content we would get on Trinidad and Tobago radio. He's like, I don't leave this station. This station gives me everything I want. And I was like, damn, that's dope, right? That's dope. So he's a rideshare driver, and all day, every day, he said that his station does not leave 106.5, right? So again, everything has its pros and cons. When you are building your business and you are creating content to build your audience, I really advise everybody to look at all the different channels that you could distribute your content on. Look at the different types of content you can create, and then start to have fun with figuring out, how do I get to tap in to these different channels, and what type of content can I put over here? What would make sense to put over here? All right. And when you can start to gamify your digital strategy and your content strategy, it really makes it fun, and you're going to start to see the results, right? People consuming your content are going to win, and ultimately you're going to be omnipresent. You're going to be where everybody is, because I think one thing that people need to keep in mind is as much as you hear, videos taking over on one channel, and that channel is social media, right? But guess what? That's just one channel. There are still all of these other channels that you can tap into that are bigger than social media, right? Bigger on the same level or even less than, but all of these are different channels, and everybody learns and consumes content differently. Somebody who is a driver, somebody who is on the road driving, is not watching TikTok videos all day. They're not watching YouTube videos all day. They, chances are listening to radio, satellite radio, listen to a podcast. Something where they do not need to watch the content. They can listen to the content. Somebody who is, they're at work or they're on their mobile device and they need to get some quick information, is going to do a Google search. And I've told you guys before, over 80% of the search engine results that pop up is a link to a written article. And what Google and these search engines do is they are getting so great at pulling out information and answering your questions as a featured snippet or in the people also ask section. That way somebody doesn't have to go through an entire article to get the information. See what I'm saying? So when you start to realize, what are all these different digital channels that we have access to and what content is going to work on each thing, when you start to look at it on a bigger spectrum, you're going to get more reach. You're going to get better results. Rather than you just focusing on creating video and dumping it on social media, that's still just one channel. That's still just one type of content. And even if you are creating different types of content, video, pictures, maybe you're doing an infographic, if you're only ever putting it on one channel, that's just one channel. So if all you're doing is taking videos, infographics, slide decks, and dumping it all on LinkedIn, cool, that's still just one channel. You have people who are not on that channel, and they're going to be on other channels. We're not just talking social media. We're talking other digital channels, right? They're going to be on other digital channels, and you're going to want to ensure that you get content on those different digital channels, right? So I did a video the other day where I was just showing you guys, I do a piece of content. I do a podcast, but that podcast gets distributed on the Digipreneur FM website so that we can share the website or the link to the podcast episode across all channels, whether it is, every social media channel. Then we send it out to our notification list. We send out a blast on our email list. Those are all different channels. It's then distributed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Samsung Podcasts, Facebook Podcasts, you name it, right? Those are all different digital channels that are outside of social media that have a different audience. And that's just taking one type of content, right? So, anyways, that's not even the topic for today. I kind of went off on a tangent. You guys know how I do it, man. This is that first 10 minutes of the podcast, I be on a little bit of a tangent sometimes, right? Anywho, what are we here for today? Today's episode is 6 reasons TikTok isn't replacing Google or your website in the Caribbean anytime soon, if ever. And we got to talk about this because I'm sure by now you would have seen some reports of studies done in the U.S. that TikTok is becoming the search engine of choice between the people ages between 18 to 24. TikTok is becoming the search engine, quote unquote search engine, because TikTok is not a search engine, right? They've made an announcement that they are working on bettering their search capabilities. It still remains to be seen. We've only heard the announcement. But Gen Zers between 18 to 24, according to one study, are saying that they prefer to use TikTok as a search engine than Google. And also there was a report at the end of 2021 or early January 2022 from Cloudflare that said that the TikTok.com unseated Google.com's 15-year reign as the number one most trafficked website. Now, I put more weight in the Cloudflare analysis because that's hard data, right? Traffic passes through Cloudflare. I won't even go into what Cloudflare is, but they are used in the technical space for websites. Traffic passes through Cloudflare, and they are able to see where domain traffic is going. And for the first time in 15 years, they registered more hits to TikTok.com than they did to Google.com, right? And then the independent study on what Gen Zers are looking at or what they're using for a search engine, studies showed that people between the ages of 18 to 24 are utilizing TikTok more as a search engine, or they're going to TikTok to get information before they go to Google.com. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this from the Caribbean perspective is because that study was done in the U.S., right? There was even a study done in the U.K. with similar results, taking sample sizes of that information. Google themselves have also seen that TikTok is getting tons of traffic, right? Google themselves are also seeing that TikTok is getting a ton of traffic because guess what? When people are going on Google, they're Googling TikTok, right? And then navigating to TikTok's website. So Google themselves even came out and said that, they are seeing that there's a ton of traffic going over to TikTok. But guess what? People are... From Google's perspective, people are going on Google and then typing in TikTok and then navigating over to TikTok's website. So it's a very funny dynamic happening over there, right? But now we need to put this into context for the Caribbean region. Because while those reports are all well and good, the biggest issue that we have in the Caribbean, and I'm going to talk about Trinidad in particular. So when I look at the data, I'm going to look at Trinidad in particular because remember, folks, the Caribbean is made up of over 20 plus countries. I'm not about to go and get the data on every single Caribbean country, all right? But I did pull some data. I did pull data on Trinidad and Tobago in relation to TikTok and social media and also Google, all right? One of the biggest problems that we have is that in the Caribbean, we would see a study done in the States, or we would see data from the UK, and we would take that data wholesale and apply it to us in the Caribbean, in the entire Caribbean at that. Oh, it's happening in the UK? Well, this is a trend, so it's happening in the Caribbean too. And it's not. That is our biggest problem, is we do not localize any information. We don't even conduct our own studies. I would have loved to have seen, just as how those companies did their studies, to say how many people of 1,000 people between the ages of 18 and 24, 70% of the people said, they use TikTok or whatever the number was. I don't have that number in front of me. I don't have that specific report in front of me, right? But I'm just throwing it out there. Let's just say if they interviewed 1,000 people and 70% of them between the ages of 18 to 24 said they use TikTok before they go to Google, that's cool. But they still did a study. We are not doing any studies. We are not doing any studies in the Caribbean to say whether or not who is using what. We're not doing that. And so as of right now, and this is the crazy thing, right? As of right now, there is no data on the TikTok user base in the entire Caribbean. Surprise, there's not. There is no data on the TikTok user base in the entire Caribbean. However, we have the breakdowns of the user base for 2022, or at least up until January 2022. We have the recorded data for every single other platform for all of the other social media platforms. We also have the data on the search engines. We have data for every single thing else except for TikTok. So when I see people coming out of the Caribbean and making claims as, hey, did you know that TikTok is now the new search engine for 18 to 24-year-olds or whatever? Like, you can't say that. You can't, because you have no data. You have zero data for Caribbean countries. You don't even have data for Trinidad and Tobago. You don't have data for Jamaica. So when I see people in the Caribbean coming out and saying these things, to me, the only thing that does in my mind is write you off that you have just no idea what you're talking about. You're taking headlines from other countries and trying to give us a blanket statement so that you can sell your service. That's it. That's all you're doing. Because you have no data. And even if you began to look at some of the information that we do have available for us, you wouldn't be saying that. You'd be saying something completely different. So you know what? I'm going to dive into my 6 reasons as to why TikTok isn't replacing Google or your website in the Caribbean anytime soon. And this isn't to knock TikTok. This is not to tell you do not use TikTok. Because the truth is that TikTok is still the fastest growing social media platform. That is a fact. TikTok is giving you organic reach like no other platform is going to give you. There are benefits to TikTok. What we need to do is we need to put these things in context, because remember, Digipreneur is all about building your business digitally, right? From the Caribbean context. We need to put TikTok into context and see how it fits into your digital strategy. We also need to localize the information that we are seeing and put things into perspective. That is what we do not do. But you know what? We're here. We're on Digipreneur FM, and that is what we are going to try to do as best as possible. All right. So reason number 1. There is no data. So as I said before, there's no data whatsoever on TikTok user base or usage for the Caribbean. We do, however, have data for every other platform. Facebook is still the largest social media platform for users in the entire Caribbean. It is still the largest social media platform by far in Trinidad and Tobago, right? So Facebook in Trinidad and Tobago still has an active user base of over 754,000 active users per month. The second highest platform is Instagram with 631,000 active users per month, right? And then third, who is number 3? Let me go ahead and take a quick look. Who is number 3? LinkedIn creeped up into number 3 with 450,000 active monthly users, right? So those are our top 3 in Trinidad and Tobago. Remember, we do not have any data on the user base for TikTok in the entire Caribbean, right? There's been no studies. We have no data on active user base. We have no idea how many people are actually active on TikTok in the Caribbean. And we're probably not going to get that number until January 2023, right? When the latest report of the social media user bases come out, right? But what I did do, right, was I went and I pulled the data for the website data, the website traffic for each of the social media platforms. So remember, like I said, by the end of the year, by the end of 2021, TikTok.com unseated Google as the number 1 platform or the number 1 most visited platform in the world, right? It unseated Google. It edged out Google for the number 1 most visited platform in the world. I did look at the data for TikTok.com versus all of the other top platforms in Trinidad and Tobago, and this is what I got. So when I looked at the top 10 websites in Trinidad and Tobago for the month of June, well, this was the last time I looked. I had looked at June. I'll probably post on social media, maybe later today or tomorrow. I'll probably post what the data look like for July, because usually we get like a month delayed, right? But for the month of June, Google was the number one website visited in Trinidad and Tobago with over 46 million visits. Second was YouTube. Third was Reddit. Fourth was Facebook.com. Fifth was Twitter. Sixth was Instagram.com. Seventh on that list was TikTok.com. Eighth was LinkedIn.com. Ninth was Pinterest.com. 10 was Tumblr.com. That is the breakdown of the top 10 websites in terms of social media platforms and search engines, right? That were visited for the month of June. So that data alone shows you that even though TikTok might have been the most trafficked website overall in 2021, we still need to localize that information. It might have been the most trafficked website in the world overall, but was it the most trafficked website in a specific Caribbean country? Right? And for June, it was not. It was number 7th on the list of social media platforms, right? Now remember, this is the traffic. This is the actual domains. This is the websites. But keep in mind, that's still very relevant because some of you guys are probably thinking, yeah, but we would use TikTok we would download the app and use the phone. Remember, the study shows the title of most trafficked website for 2021 was TikTok.com. It unseated Google.com in 2021. It edged it out as the most trafficked website. So that is why looking at the website data is still relevant, right? Because TikTok unseated Google from the website aspect. So, for June 2022 in Trinidad and Tobago, Google was the most trafficked website. And of those 10 websites, it earned 53% of all internet traffic from those social media platforms and search engines. 53% of that traffic, when we look at all 10 of those websites, Google took 53% of the share of visits to the websites. Second was YouTube, and YouTube took 23% of the web traffic. All right. So we always have to localize the information. Yes, TikTok is great. You can build the audience, yada, yada, yada. However, Trinis are still going to Google first as the first or the number one website. It is also Trinidad, when it comes to Trinidad, looking at Trini data again, Google is also the number one platform that has the highest amount of usage time at over 18 minutes per day. Google has the highest usage of any platform in Trinidad and Tobago with over 18 minutes per day spent on the platform. So it has the highest usage. It also is the most trafficked platform, at least for June. Like I said, I'll go and take a look for July, and I'll put that out on social media so you guys can see. But it was the most trafficked website for June, and currently has the highest usage, the most time spent for Trinidad and Tobago. The most time spent on any application is Google. So we got to keep that in mind, right? The second reason why TikTok isn't going to replace Google or your website in the Caribbean anytime soon is that, like I just finished saying, Trinis spend the most time per day on Google than any other platform currently. Google has something called Google Eat, right? And what Google Eat is, Google EAT, it is a system that is an acronym, and Google Eat is called expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So Google has a system that ranks all pieces of content that gets indexed by the search engine. And you have to pass the Google e-test. Is it, they grade you on the expertise. The level of content gets graded on expertise. It gets graded on authoritativeness and graded on the trustworthiness factor, right? And there's guidelines for that. And if you fail those guidelines, then essentially Google either one, they don't index the content, so it doesn't show up on Google at all, or they put you, on page 2 to however many pages Google goes up to. 2 to 10. Let me see. I'm just going on the 10th page. Does it go to 10? Yeah. Well, Google puts you on page 2 to infinity. Right? So they either decide to not index your content if you do not pass the Google EAT guidelines, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, or they don't index your content at all. And if you do pass the Google EAT guidelines and standards, and if Google does believe that your piece of content is the best form of content that answers the question or query that has been placed by the Googler, then that's how you're going to get onto page 1, right? So because of that, Google downranks bad content and showcases the highest quality of content on page 1. There is no quality ranking factors for TikTok, which is why it's also become one of the top platforms, also one of the most known platforms to spread misinformation. We still also cannot type in a question and get the correct answer we want on TikTok because it is not built like the way a search engine is. So somebody would go in and say, hey, what are the top 5 best vacuum cleaners? It's not going to give you the exact answer to your question, right? Or who is the prime minister of whatever, or what is 10 times 10? Remember, search engines are built very differently than a social media platform. TikTok has announced that they want to start working on their search capabilities, but they're still not built the way a search engine is to give you the correct information or the right information to answer your question, right? Ironically, the same study that happened in the US where they were talking about, Gen Z or Gen Xers or whoever, Gen Zers or Gen Z or Gen X, Gen Zers, right? The same study that was done in the US about if Gen Zers prefer to use TikTok as a search engine. In that same study, they also asked the same group, how many of them trust the information on TikTok versus Google. And the study showed that they still trust the information on Google more than they did TikTok. So even though they went to TikTok first, they still trusted the information more over on Google, which is a very important point, right? And that's also because Google still has measures in place to rank and grade and dispel bad content. Now, one of the reasons why Gen Zers have started to go to TikTok to begin with is because they felt like when they were going on Google, SEO experts have started to learn how to rank content on Google. And it might not be the content that they wanted. So they started to go over to TikTok and Instagram and, again, follow their favorite creators to see what they were saying about a particular thing. All right. Still, Google still ranks the content, right? We still don't have a ranking system for TikTok. And I had lost my train of thought there for a second, but I just got it back. So, because SEO specialists have gotten good at ranking content, and when Gen Zers were looking for content and they were probably not getting the exact content that they wanted, so they went and they would follow their favorite creators. The big problem is that the US, the UK, those markets have gotten so competitive. But in the Caribbean, because we still have a lack of websites, we still have a lack of information out there in the public, we don't have the same competition problems that they do in other countries, right? So because people have gotten so good at ranking on Google and creating content, and, Gen Zers, weren't getting exactly what they wanted, and they would just quicker follow their favorite creators over on TikTok and Instagram to get more information about the experience. And again, it's a different type of information over there too. We still don't have that problem in the Caribbean because businesses still are not creating content. And when we jump on Google, a lot of the information we are getting is information for other markets because local businesses and institutions still are not creating the content and putting it out there for us to easily find it. So we're not having that competition problem where there's an overload of information on Google or on Bing, right? We don't have that problem. So we still need businesses to create content, get it published, and start ranking on Google because we still have a lack of information. So the reason that started to spur people to start to follow creators more on social media, that initial reason of too much information, too much competing information over on Google, we have not hit that in the Caribbean. We still have a lack of information, right? And as I said, Google is still the number one most trafficked website in Trinidad and Tobago. Yet, businesses and institutions still are not creating the content and publishing it so that they can start to show up in Google to give us the information. All right? So, reason number 3. We're talking 6 reasons why TikTok isn't going to replace Google or your website in the Caribbean anytime soon. So here's another issue that we have with TikTok, right? People are rushing. So in the Caribbean, people are rushing to create 60 seconds or less worth of content to capture people's short, quote unquote, short attention spans. But forget the entire purpose of short form content is to lead people to longer form content that goes in depth on information. Where is your long form content? So more often than not, people may be intrigued and then want more information after they've watched your TikTok video or your IG Reels or even your YouTube Shorts. Most people are still not even converting the content over to YouTube Shorts, right? So where do they go? After we've watched your TikTok video or your Instagram videos or your short form video, where do the people go? You know where they go? They head to Google to do more research to get more information. These people may want to check out your blogs or your podcasts or your long form video content. Then when they realize you have nothing else to offer, they start getting edified by the folks who have more information and dive in deeper about the topic than you. So TikTok is also hurting your authority and your credibility because as a business owner, when you are creating all of this short form content, it is supposed to lead to more in-depth content. The amount of videos I see, right, where people come into like, hey, here are 6 strategies to do this. 1, bam, 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 and they fire off the 6 strategies. They fired them off in 30 seconds, maximum 60 seconds, right? Because remember, they're trying to quote unquote capture people's short attention span. But you can't go in depth in 30 seconds. My podcasts are an hour, and if I wanted to go 2 hours on a topic, I could. I could go 2 hours on a topic. But for me, an hour is good for me. I try to get everything in an hour because I know there's gonna be a video, there's gonna be a blog, there's gonna be short form content and there's gonna be different types of content through different channels that touch on the topic from different angles. Right? But the point is, If I do a video today on 6 reasons why TikTok isn't replacing Google or your website, I can list off my 6 reasons in 30 seconds. But it's never going to be, it's a taste. When you go to a restaurant and you get a sample, that's what TikTok is, TikTok is a sample. After you get a sample and you like the content, then what do you want to do? You want to order the meal. But where TikTok is hurting businesses, and again, this is why it's not going to replace Google. It's not going to replace your website. It's not going to replace YouTube in the Caribbean anytime soon, is because after people have watched your TikTok video, Caribbean businesses are not creating long-form content. They're not creating blogs because the majority of the businesses do not have websites. The majority of the businesses do not have YouTube channels. They don't have podcasts. They're not diving in deeper on any channel, on any platform. So after you have given these people teaser information, and now they want to do research and learn more about the topic, if your business is not there to provide the long-form information, then you're simply serving up your clientele to somebody else. They're going to be edified by somebody else. And as I said, if Google is still the number one place that people are trafficking on Trinidad and Tobago, as the example, if that is still the number one place they're going to get information, but your business is nowhere there with any long-form content, because you're only creating short-form content on social media, you are hurting your business as well. You're hurting your business in the process. Because you've teased enough information, then I'm going to Google, and guess what? You're not going to be there, and your competitor might be there. Not might. Your competitor is going to be there. And ultimately, who are you going to work with? You're going to work with the people who you have established a trust with. And somebody who can speak an hour about a topic, or give me a 2,000-word blog or a 20-minute YouTube video breaking down your 30-second topic, that is where the trust goes. That is where the trust goes. And when I look at other Trini experts, other Caribbean experts, the people who I only see, this is funny, right? The people who I only see on TikTok, giving out tips and strategies, and they don't have a blog or a YouTube channel. They don't have no other channel where they're diving in deep on a topic. I don't ever see those people anywhere other than TikTok. So I don't see clients that they've worked with. They might get other smaller people to work with, but I don't get to see them in any boardrooms. I don't see them getting booked to speak anywhere. I don't see them getting booked to host any workshops. I don't even see them hosting workshops themselves. Now, you might say, well, maybe they don't want to. Maybe they just want to work with, other, smaller businesses or people who are, people who they are a step or two ahead of. But the point that I'm making is, when you are creating content to give tips and strategies, you are creating content to establish yourself as a thought leader. Part of establishing yourself as a thought leader is to get featured, is to get published, is to get booked on higher authoritative platforms. And when you do that, you start to get higher paying clients. You start to get more people looking to book your services. You start down the path of becoming oversubscribed, where now there's a waiting list to work with you. So if you are only creating short form content and you're not getting the bigger clients, you're not getting booked to speak, you're not getting featured, chances are the market isn't viewing you as an expert. And people who probably don't know better are the ones who are seeing your short form content, saying, this is the person I want to work with. But then guess what? The vast majority of them are coming out and they're saying that they never got what they thought they were getting after working with you. All right. So when you only produce short form content on TikTok and you produce content nowhere else, there is no long form content, there is no in-depth content, understand that that is simultaneously hurting you as well. Because people are going to look for the in-depth information, they're going to do more homework. And if you are not showing up with in-depth information and edifying your clientele, the right thinking people are not booking you. The platforms are not featuring you. You're not getting called for interviews. You're not getting called to host workshops. You're not going to get booked. So understand that it's hurting you in the process as well. All right. Reason number 4, TikTok also gives you the illusion that in order to build on their platform, you need to leave your expertise at the door and create trendy and lifestyle content only. What happens next is that you start to build your audience around a trendy or lifestyle content. That your expertise content goes out the window when you actually do create it, because you are now catering to the algorithms and not actually building your business on these platforms. Your audience then begins to change because they're following you for the trendy content. And your platform goes further and further away from becoming a resource. Remember, you are in business. You are a business. So if all you are doing is creating the trendy content, all right, we're seeing a rise of business owners. Get ready with me. Why? Why is that become a staple in your business content? You're doing the day in the life, and the day in the life as a business owner, 80% of it is eating breakfast. You're on the road. You're showing you're at the gym. You're showing you're doing everything else, but actually showing us what you do in the business. I have watched. Now, when I see people say a day in the life of me as a business owner, right? Here's my thing. When I see people say day in the life of a business, I'm expecting to see what you do in the business. Because as like any business owner, I'm looking to see what other successful businesses are doing. Like, if I like what you do as a business owner, then I want to see what makes you tick. Right? Now, keep in mind, if you say day in the life of a business owner, right? That's the key word. Day in the life of a business owner, I'm expecting to see what you do in the business. If you say day in the life of day in the life of me on vacation, or this is what I do on my off days, or this is what I do to stay in shape, or this is what I do to get healthy, then I'm looking at your day from that lens. So if you say this is what I do on my off day, then I'm looking at it from what you do on your off day, right? If you frame it up and say, hey, this is how I manage to stay healthy while, working, 10 hours a day, then I'm looking at it from the lens as to, all the healthy things that you're doing while managing to work your business. You see what I'm saying? So it's how you frame it. But when you say day in the life of your business, I'm expecting to see what you do in your business. I'm expecting to see, your tools, your systems, where you do your meeting. Like, I'm expecting to see that type of stuff. Business stuff. But what happens is you're following all of these trends, and the majority of the people that are doing it in the Caribbean are just giving you the fluff. Day in the life of a business owner, we're watching you eat. We're watching you go to the beach. We're watching you work out. We're watching you do everything but the business. So TikTok is giving you the illusion that in order to find success on their platform, you need to do all the trendy stuff. You need to dance. You need to point. You need to create all the fluffy content. And then you're moving further and further away from your platform becoming a resource. And it's because you're watching all of the content creators who are creating random content. This is no knock on nobody, but you're watching all the content creators who are creating entertainment content, and they're blowing up. And you're thinking, okay, well, maybe we need to do that too in order to blow up. But how does that impact your business? When all I see is, 60% of your content is you working out, it's you drinking coffee, it's you eating eggs, it's you doing all the stuff that your business, how does that help grow your business? And so far, I'm not seeing any successful story of anybody especially in the Caribbean, I'm not seeing y'all. I mean, y'all feel free to correct me, but I'm not seeing somebody who has a business, who is building a successful business, and when you look at their TikTok, it's all just a fluff content. I'm not seeing that. The millionaires, first of all, the millionaires who are in the Caribbean that don't really post much about their business barely post, because guess what? They're building their multi-million business and they're making the millions and they're barely posting. And they would use social media more as, just connect friends and family, maybe an announcement here and there. But the majority of the millionaires that I know aren't really using social media for anything other than posting family pictures and whatnot, because they're busy, working, building that multi-million business. The people who are using social media and using it as a platform to build as a resource, when you look at their platforms are like 90% resourceful content. And they are the ones getting booked. They are the ones getting published, getting featured. They are the ones that are making real waves in the industry. The people, when you look at them, where, 60, 70% of their content is day in the life, get ready with me, this is what I ate for breakfast, hey, shopping hauls, look at me workout. Those are the ones that are usually not making money. Those are the ones that are usually not getting booked. They're usually not getting featured. And when they do get featured somewhere, it's because they either, one, know somebody in PR to help them get a link to get featured on something, and it's usually not even business related. So you have to really watch those things, right? But TikTok gives you that illusion. And again, it is an illusion, because you can use TikTok as a platform to be a resource. And I promise you, if 80%, 90% of your content is resource content, using that platform to push information about your industry, there's so much to talk about in your industry. There's so much to talk about. If you use it as a platform to build yourself as a resource, where people are coming to you to learn all about your industry, I promise you're going to start getting booked. You're going to start getting featured. People are going to want to get more and more and more of you, and you're going to start to see your accolades rise and your notoriety and your perception as the thought leader in your space. All of that is going to grow. Number 5. While TikTok has its benefits and can be used as a great tool to build community and show another side of your business, business owners need to remember that they are a business and they are in business to solve problems. You need to be grounded in that fact that your business needs to tie back into making money or establishing trust as a leader in your space. TikTok isn't being used as a strategic tool in the Caribbean, and it is costing you time, money, and resources to create for a platform that isn't helping you ultimately achieve your objectives. The brands that are winning locally on TikTok are usually the brands who are an international brand and have a local franchise, like a KFC. They don't need the Caribbean to thrive, and they don't need to spend much money on marketing. So they can get away with everything that they are doing while every other business doesn't have that luxury. So when you look at a KFC, right? We know KFC is going to sell. They don't have to advertise. KFC don't have to do nothing, right? KFC is going to sell. It is an internationally known brand, over 70 plus years in the game, right? And growing. They don't have to advertise. So when you see them on a TikTok and all they're doing is having fun and creating entertainment content, they can get away with that because they're an international recognized brand. They do not need the Caribbean. They can just create content. They are going to sell regardless. So a lot of our other businesses, a lot of our other brands are looking at a KFC and they're like, oh, a KFC is doing it. Well, we could just create dancing TikTok videos too. Understand that you are not KFC. People are going to buy KFC regardless of what KFC does. KFC had the blunder the other day with Trinidad, with KFC Trinidad and Tobago. That doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't matter. It was just something that had to be pointed out because it's like KFC, like, why are you doing this? You could do anything you guys want, but why are you guys doing this? You guys don't have to do a gunman tune, gunman dance in KFC. That doesn't align with your brand. It doesn't align with your values. You could do anything else. You don't even have to do anything, but you could do anything else, and you guys are going to be Gucci, right? But understand that the rest of us businesses don't have that kind of luxury. You don't have that notoriety of a KFC. You don't have that buy-in value where, again, people are going to buy KFC regardless of what KFC does. Until KFC comes out and says, yo, they recall on chicken, they've been poisoning people. And even that, people are going to be like, you know what, well, I it's okay. I'm a dead eating KFC. They love KFC that much. But you don't have that luxury. So you need to be using platforms like a TikTok strategically. You need to be leveraging the platform that are giving you organic reach. Build yourself as a resource on these platforms. Stop trying to be trendy and only creating lifestyle content when you have all the opportunity to be a resource. Be the reason why people fall in love with barbering. Be the platform why people fall in love with cooking. There's a guy, what's his name? Just Kristen, who is a local TikTok chef. I don't even know if he's a chef, but he always making food on his TikTok. Listen, I love the fact that he's always teaching in his content. He is always teaching in his content, and he has found his style. He has found his flavor as to how to make it trendy and just binge-worthy. But at the same time, all of his content is teaching. He ain't dancing that video yet. All right? So you can be a resource. I follow Kristen just for recipes, but again, he is teaching in every single video. All right? Be that resource. People should, as a business owner, people should say, I follow this business because they are the industry experts and I learn everything about this industry. Your content should not be 80, 90% fluff. It should be 80 to 90% value. People should look at your platform as the resource. And then sprinkle in, oh God, it's okay to dance. It's okay to do a get ready. But sprinkle that in, man. Sprinkle it in. Give it a little touch. All right? But 90% of your content should be resource-worthy content. Number 6, the sixth reason why TikTok isn't going to replace Google or your website in the Caribbean anytime soon is that we still don't have access to any of the e-commerce or money-making features or the creative fund on TikTok. We don't have access to any of those features, but guess what? We still have access to e-commerce and money-making features with your website, with Google, and YouTube. So people still want to book you. They still want to buy the products. They still are going to have to click your link in your TikTok bio to go and purchase the product or go and book your services. You can monetize YouTube in the Caribbean, and YouTube is going to cut you a check or do direct deposit, right? People still need to go to these external platforms to buy and book you. They do not have any of the e-commerce or any of the money-making features on TikTok for the entire Caribbean region. This is why you still need to have your website. You should still be looking to leverage Google. You should still be looking to leverage YouTube. Even if you're taking all of your TikTok videos, start the YouTube channel and dumping it on YouTube Shorts. YouTube is still a search engine. YouTube is still the second largest trafficked website in Trinidad and Tobago, right? YouTube is going to pay you. TikTok is not. Listen, I think all of the TikTokers that I know, they all have daytime jobs. They all have daytime jobs, and the ones who don't have a job have a business. Like, I'm talking the popular ones. But the vast majority of the popular TikTokers all have a daytime job. All right? So, you still need to have your website. Remember, we're talking for business owners. Business owners, you still need to have your website. You still want to be on platforms that are going to pay you. Use TikTok. Just use it strategically. Understand where TikTok fits into your content strategy. Understand how to leverage it as a digital distribution channel. But understand that you are a business first and you need to be strategic. Use that short form content to drive people back to your long form content. Use TikTok and the short form content to drive people back to platforms where they can buy from you. All right? So that is my 6 reasons as to why TikTok isn't going to replace Google or your website anytime soon in the Caribbean. All right? If you guys enjoyed this episode, feel free to drop a rating on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Please rate the podcast. That helps with growing the Digipreneur podcast family all over the world. Don't forget to drop a review of the podcast. The reviews help grow the Digipreneur FM family and let people know what they're getting into when they check out the Digipreneur FM podcast, right? And it also gives me a pulse on how you guys are enjoying the content, right? So definitely drop a review. I don't ask for much, but definitely drop a review or drop a rating whenever you guys get the opportunity to. If you guys enjoy this content, feel free to go and follow me over on Keron Rose, KeronRosc on any social media platform. LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, any of the social media platforms, you guys can go and check me out. Don't forget to check out the KeronRose.com website to learn more about building your digital presence and monetizing your platforms. And you guys can also subscribe at digipreneur.fm to the Digipreneur FM website. Subscribe to the notification list or the email list to stay up to date on all things related to the podcast. That is it from me today, folks. Remember, reach out if you guys have any questions or if you guys enjoyed the episode, all right? Have yourself a wonderful day and take care.
You've been listening to the Digiboss, Keron Rose. We hope your notepad was filled after this episode. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. The learning doesn't stop, folks. And to make sure you don't miss any gems from the Digiboss, go over and follow him on all social media platforms at Keron Rose. Folks, don't just sit there with a notepad. We need you to implement at least one thing into your business before the next episode. That's the only way your business levels up. Thanks for listening to Digipreneur FM. Now go be great.